Hey everybody, welcome back to Four Titles, One Truth. Today's conversation, it's going to feel heavy, but it's one that needs to happen.
We're talking about mental health in the military and in life after service, the part nobody put in the recruiting brochure.
We've lived the highs and the lows, and today we're breaking down the walls. We're breaking our silence for the people still carrying what they think they have to hide.
Let's get into it. What mental health challenges did you encounter during your service?
First off, life, because life be lifing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so I'll stick to the civilian part of it, the civilian related part of it. You got money, you got relationships, and those two things are forever going to burden people. That's just life, right? Now, when it comes to the military part of it, the first big stressor that I ever experienced was being away from home, right? Because I went from Ohio and the surrounding states, right, the tri-state area, sometimes down in Alabama, to now going to Jackson, going to Alabama, going to Florida, going to, all the places where my family and friends weren't. Mm-hmm. So that was a mental hit on me. And then my first deployment took me to, for the first time overseas, to Germany, then Belgium, then Hungary, and then we ended up in Croatia. And that was a rude awakening as well, because being further away from your family and then taking on the responsibilities of a deployment, and then it was my first time really being a leader, and an identified leader in the Army with soldiers, and having to deal with that through that 6-month deployment. So. And then it just continued to go from there. The challenges that I faced are clear because I was in the middle, or it evolved while I was there. The understanding of mental health evolved in the 30 years I served. So I can relate to when it wasn't talked about to when it was a focus for leaders throughout the military. Mm-hmm. So when I first identified some type of differences with me and my mental health, it wasn't because I was smarter than anybody else. It was because, you deal with stuff.
Yeah,
And then you don't. I was raised by a man who didn't show a lot of feeling, right? My dad, I can count to you on one hand the times my dad told me he loved me. And it's not because he didn't love me. It's because that was the way that men did, right? And in the way he was raised. He was from Alabama. And so that pat on the back, that rooting for you from a male perspective, I didn't get a whole lot of that. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of the negative side, hey, knucklehead, act right, get right, blah, blah, blah. And so that helped me in a negative way to lead, right? Because I wasn't used to giving applause. I wasn't used to patting people on the back. Mm-hmm. And so it was always, it seemed like the only time my voice got loud was the negative stuff, right? Instead of the cheers as well. So my first, say 10 years in the military, we weren't supposed to talk about mental health, because if it was identified that you were mentally weak, quotation marks, that absolutely impacted your career, your progression, your ability to lead in the Army's mind at that time. So there wasn't a lot of complaints. I never, ever heard of going to talk to a psychiatrist unless you were in trouble, right? So, of course, you had to have a psych eval if you were getting Article 15 for whatever, or fighting or what have you. So, And then even when I was a drill sergeant, when I went to be I got mentally evaluated to be a drill sergeant. And they ask you questions, but my advice from my peers and my leaders were just go in there and say no. Go in there and say everything's good. Because if you get identified as a mental health problem, that's going to be a flag on your records, and you're not going to be able to be a drill sergeant, which was one of my 3 things I wanted to achieve in the military. And so first half of my career, mental health was, shh, don't talk about it. And hopefully you find a leader, you serve under a leader that has the ability to talk to you and bring that stuff out and allow you to not keep that stuff so tight in you. But then later on in my military career, especially when the wars in Iraq started and Afghanistan, the military started to realize, the country started to realize the stress. Like my boy Lance, he deployed, went for 12 months, but then halfway through the 6-month mark, they're telling him, nope, you're going to do 15 months. And they started to, they mean the military started to realize that, we're not only breaking these people physically, we're breaking these people mentally, because people were going back to back to back to back and deploying. Yep. So my next 15 years, you started to see not only mental health being accepted, you started to see it talked about more, you started to see more emphasis on it, and you also started to hear senior leaders at the first sergeant and higher rank start to talk about their own issues and problems in front, mental health issues and problems.
Right. I think a lot of that had to come out just because, like you said, after that first 15 years, what's going on? Yeah. All right, a lot of that next generation is coming in.
Yep.
And that next and it's true. I mean, we see a lot of the Instagram and TikToks, they're talking about all of the different how all of the different generations, or Generation X is different from the. I mean, and it is absolutely true.
Evolution.
That is that's how it is, and a lot of those guys are a lot more sensitive, a lot more open. I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but they're a lot more
emotionally
in tune to it than
we were.
Or or
each
what we thought we were allowed to.
Absolutely.
I mean, because I can tell you, in my in my area where I work, I mean, I wasn't as much as closed off to being a empathetic. I mean, because I had to, being and taking care of patients and stuff like that. The problem is, and that's the thing about mental health. There's so many layers to it, and when you can shut things down, or you can express them much more than what they need to be, more than what they need
over
to
the
be.
top
so
either way.
That was probably, I can tell you, that was my challenge in trying to control, not blasting out, and not necessarily keeping things in. I probably didn't start, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I know I probably started keeping more things in after I deployed, just because of that repeated, seeing what I saw every night, that trauma that we saw every night, and trauma is, I mean, you can look up the definition. It's a lot of different, trauma can be different for a lot of folks for what you're experiencing, as far as if you're in a firefight, or if you're taking care of those folks that have been in a firefight or an IED blast, and seeing those injuries and knowing where those injuries and things came, how they occurred, and seeing them every night and trying to take care, put those people back together so that they can
physically
get home,
and
get them home,
hoping
that they do, and knowing that you can't or you couldn't dwell on those whatever 3-4 cases that you had, because somebody else is coming in that you got to take care of, so you have to be just hit it, so it was something.
And I'll tell you this, every deployment I've been on, there was always somebody that was put under suicide watch. And it's because the mental health, And it's a thin line, right? Because mental health is real, but then you got people that would take advantage of it. And so what ended up happening in the evolution of mental health in the military is you shouldn't be the one to try to decide who's playing with it as a leader.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You need a
You
professional.
should be the one that should try to correct their course by dialogue, by relatability, and by counseling, everything that you can possibly do, but send them to the experts.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I think as leaders that we probably both understood is like we have to know our people.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to identify when somebody's bullshit or
off.
somebody is like, okay, that's not
Yeah.
them. You know, that is absolutely not them. That's and being able to go up and say, hey, come on, let's go have a conversation. You know, so.
And I'll tell you another mental health challenge I've had to deal with is actual suicides under my leadership. As a first sergeant and as a sergeant major, you know, the problem is you're disconnected from the lower levels of the rank tree, meaning you have a PFC that comes to your unit, and this is a real story. PFC got to my unit, and then within, I want to say, 60 to 90 days, he killed himself. You know, and so the question is, as a leader, I'm like, blaming myself, right?
That's hard.
The culture of the unit is better than that because it's my unit. You know, I'm the one that sets the culture, right? But at the same time, 60 days isn't really time for you to understand that culture, right? And then,
you know, sometimes, especially like that, some people had problems before they came in. Because I can tell you, whenever my first duty assignment was at Fort Knox, and that's where they had basic training. That's when basic training was there back in the mid-90s, 90s. And I was working in the ER, so we would have soldiers come in that were trying to kill themselves, hang themselves, take medication. So we're doing that. So that was my first experience.
Basic training.
Dealing with that aspect of the mental health deal.
Yeah, and so the mental health challenges are real. That was the whole point of me saying that. And I've endured some. I've fallen on some others, and then I've witnessed a lot as well. So, do you have any more to add about the challenges?
I mean, that thing. I mean, my challenges, like I said, it was not so much as hiding it by not saying anything for many years, as much as was just controlling, not blowing. I mean, because I guess that's how I would direct my my frustrations.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Quick trigger.
That was
me too.
Yep.
But that was most of my career. So, and anyway, so how did the military culture influence your approach to mental health?
Well, I mean,
that's a very good question.
I mean, and a lot of folks, you didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a taboo thing.
100%.
That if you talked about it, then it was like, ooh, that guy can
ineffective.
You can't put him in charge because he's gonna mess some other folks up. You know,
not stable enough to lead.
Yeah, you can't. So it was one of those things where, I mean, if you were feeling some kind of way, you couldn't say anything. I mean, and I could say luckily for me, I didn't really have. I mean, it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything major where I was like really like, you know what, I need to talk to somebody, you know, till after I deployed, you know, and it wasn't even right after I got back from deployment. It was, you know, probably some time where it was like.
Was it direction or you?
No, it was my I said, let me go. I said, this ain't, you know,
right.
Yeah, you know, because it's like you get short with people, you know, and you know that you are, you know, you get short with people where it's like, why did I don't need to be like that with these, you know, and it's like, something it's not right. You know, it's not right. I need to try to correct that, you know, but that was probably some years after I had deployed. I think I probably was like I was probably a young or senior major, young lieutenant colonel, where it was like where I just felt like at that time I felt confident enough to like, hey, they ain't gonna do nothing, I can go do that. And then the table was turning a little bit on the how people felt about
mental health.
Yeah, mental health and things. It was getting to be a little more open and stuff now. So that's probably so it was. I mean, it's the same thing for folks that were in our generation or our age group. Or I mean, it was like you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about it, and if you did talk about it, it was like
weakness.
Yeah. Something's wrong with him, little punk or whatever.
Yeah. And it's the same. Military culture for me in the beginning, it was taboo 100%. You don't bring, and the only reason I had it because the old heads that were in the military when my first deployment, that was my first introduction to mental health. It's there, but you stay away from it if you're going to stay in the Army, because it was absolutely pushed onto me that if you discuss your mental health problems and take it to the level of having to talk to someone in the rank structure, right, chain of command, or in the hospital, that was a flag, and that flag would follow you the rest of your career. That was my belief. And to relate that to the civilian side, man up, right? Be a man. You have to not show your feelings. You have to not be sensitive towards people. You have to lead with an iron fist and by setting the example. And that was what I was raised in the military. And I absolutely evolved from that. But I evolved from that because my family growing up, my mom specifically, put a little compassion in my heart. My dad was a rock, right? But my mom, touched me with compassion. And so I knew to, like you said, talk to your soldiers. I knew to pay attention, but I didn't know, because of my belief, I didn't know how far to push, how far to joke, how far to just engage.
Yeah, I mean,
because I didn't know that there's a real way to handle this stuff as a leader, and a real way to handle this stuff as a soldier, period, right? And so that's how it influenced it earlier. But then, like Lance said, after a while, and after deployments, the military finally started to acknowledge, and it completely changed how you left the deployment. Because you used to leave a deployment and you used to write it on paper how you felt. And then they take the paper and ask you, "You okay?" And you say, "All good." And then they don't stamp it. They basically just throw that away, right? To now it's they expect you to, if you're having problems, hey, reach out.
Well, they'll wait
talk.
a little bit long. I mean, it wasn't like right after we got back that they asked you those questions like, "Are you okay?" Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, they'll wait.
It was part of the return process. So that's how it influenced me. And then once you realize that you yourself have problems, once you're able to make that realization, it opens the world for you to be able to coach, mentor, and develop that
self-awareness.
Absolutely. Yep. It helps you to be able to instill that and recognize that in your subordinates. But it still doesn't teach you how to deal with it, because some people will identify something's off with the soldier, and then instead of talking to them, send them straight to the psychiatrist.
Yep.
And that completely erases your opportunity to bond with that soldier and be there with that soldier and let that soldier feel like they are cared about. Right. But that's a whole nother step. All right. Go ahead. It's on you now.
All right. So what resources were available and how effective were they?
When I already talked about it, it was very minimal. I had no idea that psychiatrists were available for soldiers when I first came in. Then while I was serving and active in those senior leadership positions, I still didn't feel comfortable with the environment that those services were available, because the fix for all of that was put you with group. Yes, you can go see a psychiatrist, but you have to go to group training, and that group training is everybody. So you don't want to be a senior leader sitting in there with a daggone specialist trying to vent yourself, because those soldiers are taught to come to you.
Right.
And so you're not really going to get any freedom. And that was a real thing for me when I was retiring. So while I was taking the steps after my retirement was proved and to finally get out of the military, you're getting evaluated for your medical benefits, right? And one of those big stops is to the psychiatrist. And when I sat and talked to a psychiatrist, and I was just being honest, I wasn't trying to over or under anything, they recommended that I go and be evaluated, to go to a location and spend about 30 days there and be evaluated.
Okay.
Right. And, I came back and I talked to Nikki about it, and Nikki's always known I was a little off. But the reality of it was I wouldn't be there with other senior leaders. I'd be there with the population and with multiple branches.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly could not, through conversations with my wife, I could not see how that could benefit me. And that's me understanding, I'm certified on a bunch of different levels when it comes to leadership and mental health. So I knew, I was very aware that I could benefit from this type of service, but not what the military is offering me.
Okay.
Right. And so I ended up just doing one-on-one phone conversations instead of going somewhere that probably could have helped me. And so the resources are there. And this is me retiring in 21. I don't know how it's evolved since then, but one thing that was missing during that time is the ability for senior leaders, the most senior leaders, to participate in therapy and in sessions that truly could benefit them without the being thrown back to the population and having to deal with that, everything that would come with that.
That stigmatism.
Absolutely. Well, not just that, but if I walk into a room with a bunch of privates and specialists and lower ranked NCOs as a sergeant major, I don't have to say anything. They automatically see me differently, right? Mm-hmm. Because of my age, the way I carry myself, and then the way my conversation is. So if I'm sitting in there with a group of soldiers like that, and we're discussing our problems, what's going to stop those soldiers from coming to me and trying to get help, because that's what I'm supposed to do as a leader? And then how in the world am I supposed to be able to be honest in that group, right? And call it what you want, vulnerability, call it lack of courage or whatever. I just couldn't see how I could benefit in that situation.
No, I see that, because they'd look at it be like, shoot, he's just messed up. What am I going to do? What he going to do for me? Or how am I going? Yeah, how's he going to help me? So yes, I understand that.
Yeah, and so that was one thing that I thought was missing: an executive level of counseling that would not allow us senior leaders to say, "No, I'm good. Go ahead and sign off on it," but actually make us go through the same process that we expect the soldiers to go through. I think that'd help a lot of people.
Okay.
What about you?
All right, I mean, same thing. I mean, you have like the mental health specialist and folks like that you call, make an appointment with.
Chaplain as well.
Yeah, talk to the chaplain. Then you have some of the civilian sites out there and veteran groups that have some of those services and
available.
Stuff. I apologize, can't give you all of their names and stuff, and I have to go back through my
we'll put what we find in the description.
Yeah, try to find some stuff. But same thing. I mean, it's especially as you get up in rank and stuff, and you have different leadership positions, and depending on where you are, I mean, it's hard to and you can't be in the same room, the same group, group there, especially if you're doing some type of group therapy or something like that.
My squad
as
leader
other folks,
keeps yelling at me.
So because I had to do some whenever I was, but it was like online, so we didn't have to have we didn't have our cameras on, right. Didn't have ranks or anything like that. So.
But you still felt you had to be careful with what you said?
Yeah, I mean, some stuff, just because it's like, once you look and see the names, like, okay, I don't know, none of these people are with me. And I think that they're probably better at these days making sure that folks aren't in the same,
rooms.
Same rooms or same, working in the same areas and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, it's and part of it is like I probably wasn't looking for a lot of other things because you have in your mind for so long, it's like, ain't nothing wrong with me, I'm fine, I'm good, and
you convince yourself.
I don't need any of that. I don't need any of that stuff going on. That's not me, and you're and you cope so much until you can't, till you get to a point where it's just like it's exhausting. It's an exhausting
you think you're coping.
thing.
Yeah,
and it just wear you out,
And that's what I'll say, man. I will absolutely say, speaking to professionals is absolutely something that is required if you see the fog, or we'll call them the thunderstorms, starting to get into your mind. You shouldn't. And the biggest thing that soldiers used to always say that, well, I don't want people in my business, and I absolutely could relate to that. But if something's bothering you so much that it changes who you are, right, the way that you would normally be, then that's a problem.
Well, you're gonna go to the doctor if you twist your knee or twist your ankle or whatever. So why wouldn't, if something is not going on in your in your mind, why don't you go to somebody that does that? That can help heal your mind. Get you in that right direction and stuff. So I mean, it's one of those things I think that you always understood, but that's just not something that was especially in the Black culture. That's not something that we gravitate towards, because it's like we always have to be on the shining. Have to be shining. We're on the defense a lot. But it's like, ain't nothing wrong with me, I'm good. What are you talking about? So because I guess sometimes we feel like we're always being watched or judged.
Absolutely, 100%.
So if they look at you and they go,
catch you off one day.
Yep.
That summarizes who you are to them.
Yep.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
But the takeaway is there are resources available.
It's a lot of resources now,
and it's improved a lot since I've gotten out. Right, and that's only 4 years, and the easiest way for me to say it is they're as effective as you are willing to give in.
Into it.
Absolutely,
yep.
put into it. Yep, that's what I was looking for.
Yep.
So I think that's the catch right there.
Yep, and they're a lot more open and wanting to help and get you to where you want to be and need to be.
And understanding.
That's the word. Yep.
So we've talked about our experiences, but how can the military improve its support for mental health, in your opinion? Understanding we're not in anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, and it's not just in the military. It's on the in the world, in the civilian sector. It's just like we just don't have enough providers out there that can that can help and give people the time. I mean, because one session or one interview or what is not gonna get you to where it's a start. Right. But you need multiple, and you would want to get them some of those closer together. Because I can tell you in my experiences, like I would have a appointment and then I wouldn't have another appointment for a couple of months. Where it's like, what did we talk about the last time? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's just trying to if we can like even get some of our leaders, our senior leaders, and get some of them more aware and more trained in some of the some of that initial this is how you need to react to that. Yeah, this is what you need to talk about. And then we just need to try to get more I mean, I don't see how we can get more providers.
Well, that's the thing. Their people are out there. It's a money thing. Yeah. They have to live as well. So and they went and did all that training so that they could have a decent life. And
I mean, if it's important to you, then you'll pay for it. You don't have a problem putting the funds towards it. Right. So, I mean, until it gets to be important for them, then we'll start getting some more. We'll start compensating folks some more. But it's a lot of. I mean, even that now, we just don't have enough. We're just getting so many a lack of just healthcare providers in general. Yeah. Is not. I mean, it's scary because you think we're gonna have a nursing shortage. In some years. And that's like, okay, who's gonna do the work? Who's gonna? But yeah, I mean, just more training and more availability. Team building and things so that it's not it's not a stigma to have it, or it's not something that's looked down upon for folks, because I mean, I don't think it. I mean, because we have many folks that have done it.
I mean, it's in politics right now. Talking about what a man is and what a man shouldn't do. I'm gonna just say this, right? How can the military improve its support of mental health? Continuing to tear down the idea that it's weakness, right? And also continuing to tear down the idea that only a certain amount of people or a certain group of people have that, we'll call it deficiency, right? It's not, everybody has experienced some type of mental trauma. Everybody. Even if you've had the perfect life, it may not be the depths that some people have, to where some people have been raped. Some people have been robbed, have been
shot at,
have survived earthquakes and tornadoes. Some people
it's all of that.
There's real, I won't say real, but there are levels to trauma, right? But everybody's experienced it, and just because you have a good foundation and you were raised, or you're able to express that and get that anger and frustration and all that stuff out of you, or lessen it. All right, that doesn't mean that other people still don't have that. All right, cut. Yeah. Zoo, go downstairs. Go. Get in. Is somebody down there? Oh, great job. You quiet. Go, Zoo. Get the barking out the way. All right. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. 3. All right. 3, 2, 1. But the way that they can best improve the support for mental health is, like you said, helping people identify that looking inside of yourself is not a problem. It's not a unmanly thing to do.
No.
And then secondly, just because you're feeling okay at this moment Don't turn around and judge somebody who's going through something, because everybody goes through something. And the military, this macho, the definition of macho, the one thing that needs to be curtailed is stuff, how it affects you, because that stuff is real. Even the ones who are loudest about it, they've had traumatic mental health situations. I'm not going to say they were drowning or whatever, but you feel it. So stop holding that against people and stop acting like, I know I'm getting aggressive.
No, I just,
but that bothers me.
I mean, but I'll say this too, is that not all mental health issues or whatever you want to call them can stem from trauma. It can just be stress. It can just be stress of whatever your job is, stress of whatever life is. And if you're not able to, or if it's difficult to try to channel that out or to different things, it starts affecting your health.
100%.
It starts affecting your family life. It
100%.
starts, I mean, just a lot of things. So it's just not the one thing when we're talking about it. We're not just talking about a trauma, because trauma it's a big one that sticks to folks,
right?
And will linger for years.
But even stress, to me, stress falls under trauma, because if the stress is enough that it's crippling, or enough that it's changing once again who you are and how you'd react to things, that's a traumatic event, because the event may be longer. Like, say for instance, you're military speaking, say it's your first time being a platoon sergeant, right? And then, you think you're mentally prepared for that role, but then you got 40 soldiers dependent on you and a lieutenant who are now literally expecting you to have the answer or the fix for everything. And you say you don't feel that you're ready for that, because sometimes you can get promoted too fast, or sometimes you can step into situations that you're not physically ready for, mentally ready for, and say that is making you shaky now, making you nervous after you were the most stand-up soldier that we've ever seen. And now you're in this position and you keep failing back to back to back, because now your confidence is waning, because that stress is starting to kick in, and now you're starting to look at yourself as being incapable, or I shouldn't be in this position, or I can't do this. That's trauma, right? Whether you want to identify it, not you, but whether someone wants to identify that as a form of trauma, that's a problem, because trauma equals mental. It affects mental stability.
Mental health it's a large topic. I mean, you have your anxiety. You have a lot of different triggers for folks. So again, it's not just, you didn't have to go to you didn't have to be in combat to have some type of mental health issue or trauma or something like that. So
agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Tommie. What advice would you give to service members struggling with mental health issues?
Well, like I said, it was an evolution for me, and that's why I get so energetic about it, because I was that naive leader that felt everybody should be like me. And at that time, I was, in my mind specifically, the person that you would follow, right? Because I was leading from the front. I was knowledgeable in everything I was responsible for, and I held people accountable, right? But my evolution was that I'm not perfect.
Right.
I have weakness moments. Something simple, right? I am going to be late to work. It's going to happen. You're not going to be perfect all the time. And then once you're able to identify that and then adjust yourself from, I'm not 100% all the time. Sometimes I'm 97%.
You go back to being, you have to be self-aware.
Yeah.
You have to have some type of self-awareness, and you have to have some type of acceptance to, you know what, I'm not right. 100%. I'm hurt. And
which takes a long time.
And I mean, and you hope that, and I hope that folks have the support group out there for people to understand them, because if you don't have that, I mean, it's that's when you. It's very hard, very difficult if you don't have that support group. So,
and that's my advice, right? My advice is the people that you are closest to right now, those are the people that you should communicate with and communicate reality with them, right? And I'll speak to new soldiers right now. When you're coming to the military, my expectation, whether it be naive or not, that most of you have a mother or a father that cares about you, a brother or a sister, a close cousin or a close friend, or a spouse or a girlfriend, boyfriend, right? And if they are that close to you, the ones that you hugged and cried when you left, right? Those are the ones that you should start telling them what you're going through in basic training. Start telling them about your good times and your bad times. Mm-hmm. Start telling them about how you feel, whether you feel like you can do this, whether you feel like you're falling short. Start explaining that to them, because what that does is that establishes that foundation that we're talking about. And so throughout your career, the advice is always have those people that you can share with and let know that things are great and when things are struggling, so that you can have them to fall back on.
And that's a two-way street. 100%. You have to be able to listen to them with an open mind and not take it personal or take it as an attack.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you, it's like, hey, what's going on? Because you're not.
And that's that maturity.
Right. Or why are you yelling so much? Or no, you got to be able to take that and use it to be like, okay, let me go.
Yeah.
I need to go talk to somebody or see if this is happening at, if somebody's noticing this at work also. Yeah. So, I mean, it has to be a two-way street. I mean, you talk to them and they'll talk to you. I mean, but you talking to them will make them comfortable enough to come back and talk to you about it also. So,
and that's what I was going to say. That advice that I'm giving you, you also have to be receptive to that person that you're trying to let in. Mm-hmm. You have to listen to their problems. You have to listen to their struggle. You have to listen to their good times, because it is give and take. It's not going to be a true foundation for you unless you're willing to talk and listen, and they're willing to do the same. Because the only way that you can make it out of that darkness is by being able to get it out and making yourself realize that you're not unique in this situation, right? So if you are, I'll give a quick example, right? Before my last deployment was to Afghanistan, I was a first sergeant, and it was my second company. I had just finished 3.5 years as a first sergeant and deployed and came back. And then I literally went to air assault school, came back, and then within 30 days we deployed to Africa, right? And one thing that was so different and messed me up as a leader was there were so many mothers and fathers coming up to me and like with tears in their eyes saying, please take care of my baby. Please bring them back home. Mm-hmm. And when you have the ability to see that, and then you have to deal with that for the whole time you're deployed, so that you can come back and look the loved one in the face and say, I got them back to you. That is a huge level of responsibility. And I take that back. My last deployment was not Afghanistan, it was Africa. When this, I just confused the A's.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to Africa and we were dealing with Ebola, and Ebola was scaring the world, and it was significant and prominent in Africa, and we were going to aid Africa, but we had no understanding. All of our training was don't do, you'll die. Don't do, you'll die, right? And so family members were panicking because we're going into an highly infected situation, environment. And so to have family members come back and come to you and say, please take care of my kid or my brother or whatever, that put so much stress on me because I was new to the unit. They knew me because I was in the brigade already as a first sergeant. But I have to get to know these kids that I'm supposed to bring back home.
Right.
And then I'm supposed to, what I ended up doing, sacrificing my time for sleep, my time for whatever, patrolling and making sure that we were doing what we were supposed to do to be safe. Because if one person got Ebola, and I know it sounds strange, if one person got Ebola, then the whole unit was going to be infected, and that was going to completely knock us off from being effective for our mission. But and so I was killing myself trying to do, and we were separated, had one part of the brigade, I was a brigade first sergeant, so one part of the brigade was here, another part of the brigade was about 25-minute drive away. And so I'm just sitting there like just worrying and trying to make sure everything was
That's
good.
That stress trauma. And I don't think that folks understand that your leaders and your senior leaders are dealing with that, especially if you give a damn and you care about your job. I think you get it worse just because, it doesn't turn off once you go back to your room or you go home.
No.
That stuff, it continues. It's
until
always.
You're done with that, not deployment, until you're done with that duty at that duty station, because you're always on. I remember one time, well, just to finish that story before I go into another story, but I just remember that stress I had, and I didn't know who I could talk to and explore, because the senior leaders were expecting me to fix everything, right? Because I was supposed to keep it off their desk, right? So can't really relate and bond with them. My wife was not in Africa, so we were on different time schedules. So it's not like I could pick up the phone and call her, or I could because we had cell phones and all that, but it didn't make sense to interrupt her sleep and bring her into my world and now mess her world up anymore. But luckily, we had a battalion XO, and we became real cool, and we could talk to each other. He's a black gentleman, I'm black, and we were, he was from Memphis, so that Midwest thing. But the bottom line is we could play dominoes and have conversation, play cards and have conversation. And I was able to vent, and he was able to vent.
Yep.
And I can honestly tell you, if it wasn't for me being able to, because my go-to when I am caught up like that is to be over ferocious, right? Over the top, like short and final with everything I say. And then if I get any type of energy back at me, I'm borderline about to start choking people. Yeah,
that's not good.
And then so I was on that fine line there because I was scared too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to bring that back home to my family.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want to let that family, the parents and all that stuff down.
So that stress started before you all deployed.
When I walked in,
before you deployed. So.
And so, but I want to highlight, if I wasn't able to find somebody to talk to, I would have deteriorated. And then that means my focus would have deteriorated. And it would have compromised my ability, which I did with help, of course, bring everybody back safely. Mm-hmm. So I was able to focus and not let my leadership deteriorate. Okay. And so that was very beneficial. And that's just the advice I'd give you. Talk to people, find people that you can have a conversation with, and don't compromise your integrity, but absolutely find somebody that's equivalent in rank and in responsibility. And that is a few people that you can talk to.
Find a peer.
Yeah.
Yeah, find a peer that you can that you feel comfortable with, talking about things, because usually, especially in a situation like that, you all are going through the same thing. Yeah. So, I mean, and you're having the same angst and all of that stuff as far as what's going on around you and what needs to be done. Yeah. I mean, and I guess my biggest piece of advice is to talk to someone, communicate. Yeah. Communicate. Don't be afraid to identify. I mean, if you feel like, and you'll know it, unless you have you're schizophrenic or somewhere you're just really out of your mind or whatever. But most folks know when it's like, okay, this isn't going on. Don't be afraid to go talk to somebody or request to talk to somebody. Yeah. But the key word in that is talk to somebody. Yeah. Don't just keep that stuff bottled in, because it's not gonna keep you from getting promoted. Yeah. Especially this day and age. Yeah. It's not going to keep you from being able to progress in your career.
But not getting help will stop you from progressing.
Because
you're not yourself.
You need to learn, because you need to learn some techniques and how to deal with it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Whatever those. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, so I couldn't give you any tips or anything like that. But that's what they do. That's what they went to school for. That's what they got their training and things like that for. So
yeah, but just bottom line, mental health is a real thing, right? Struggling is not weakness. Silence is not strength. And what I mean by that is, just because you're going through something doesn't mean that you're a weak person. It means that you're human. Yep. And then by being silent and not finding someone to talk to and finding that foundation that can help you rebound, all right, that isn't strength, because it takes you away from who you are. Yep. You're not the person that you need to be.
No, the real strength is facing what is real, whatever problem or stressor that you have going on, and then you go get help for it when needed. So
just thank you for trusting us with this conversation. Once again, we're not talking about the academic side of mental health. We're talking about, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot that we have gone through it. Absolutely. We have seen folks going through it. We have dealt with it. So a lot of the things that folks felt when they were in the military, whether you were in charge or you weren't in charge, because you can still have those same stressors and not be in charge. Absolutely. Just for whatever your job is or whatever you are, whatever the mission is calling for. Yeah. That can cause that. So please don't think that it's just we're just talking about when you were in charge or you were in a big job or something like that. It's not absolutely isn't that.
And don't forget life.
Yes.
Finances. It's relationships. Those are real.
It's a stressor.
Absolutely. But once again, thank you for trusting us with this conversation. This was 4 Titles, 1 Truth.
And we'll catch up with you next time. Let's keep the conversation going. Y'all.
Absolutely.
All right. Peace.